If you like my videos, please like and subscribe. It's one of the only ways we can keep shedding a light on our little town of East Palestine, Ohio, now that the politicians and the media are gone. And consider joining our Facebook group, East Palestine Off the Rails. Get the truth from the people that live here. And when I get a little too dicey for YouTube, you can check me out as Phoenix on the Sword on Rumble. That is Phoenix on the Sword on Rumble. And please visit our GoFundMe site. It is set up to give relief for people that want to get out of the town of East Palestine due to the chemical disaster here. Give what you can. No donation is too small. And thank you so much for watching. Okay, we are here with Linda Murphy. And I want to say, first of all, and this was supposed to be a break day. And I think a lot of us in the town are finding this out, that it's hard to take a break with everything coming all at us at once. I was pretty much going to do nothing today. We had talked about interviewing earlier, and then I was sleeping in, and it was about 10 o'clock. And I got a phone call from my friend in Pittsburgh, and he said, "Hey, Governor DeWine's supposed to come into town." And unfortunately, that's kind of what they do. They fly under the radar. And when we went to the JD Vance press conference, there wasn't one citizen there. Even though on the website, on their JD Vance, I voted for JD Vance. I like him. On his website, the government website, it said, he's coming into town to talk with residents and press. But it wasn't announced. And when I called our Muni building, as several other people did, wondering where he was going to be, we never got a call back. And I called early in the morning. I believe Senator Vance came in town late afternoon. So then we just looked for press cars. But that's another prior press conference. This press conference, Dr. DeWine came into town, and I had 10 minutes to get there. So I am wearing the same clothes I jumped out of bed with, and I don't know what time it is. It's almost 5 o'clock. But we were just talking. Linda was just saying how you just can't keep on top of everything and how it's disrupted our lives. So this is Linda Murphy. We met years ago. Her sister-in-law, Caroline,
Yes, Caroline,
was awesome. Her kids have been patients for years, and I think they're dispersed across the country now.
Yep. Well, they're all up around Cranberry now, so all back.
Oh, okay. Because I know one went to San Francisco for a while, right?
Yep. Yeah. She's back now. Caroline's in Florida, so
that I know. Yeah.
So,
so you were just saying that you had to take a step back, and you haven't even been looking at social media and things like that. Let's talk about a little bit about that first, and we'll find out exactly where you're from and where you live.
Okay. So I'm like you. I want to know what's going on, and you want to be involved, and because it involves you. So you get in groups, you get with people, you get with individuals, you get on Facebook, you get wherever, and it becomes overwhelming. I was finding that I was looking at my phone, and then I would put it down, and I'm involved in a group text or group messenger. And after 40 minutes, I looked at my phone, I had 132 messages. I have no idea what the conversation is. I have no idea what's going on. So I unplugged, but now it's like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, because now I'm unplugged and now I want to know what's going on. But then the other part of me is like, did anything really happen? Did I really miss any developments? Because we're not being given the truth, and nothing's really changing since the day of the derailment. It's all the same. Like, you're talking about JD Vance and DeWine being here. What difference does it make?
I hate to say this, but when they come in, well, at least Governor DeWine today he actually scolded me and pointed at me. They come in for almost under the radar for a photo op and a ribbon cutting,
100%.
and then they leave. I don't know why they wouldn't want to answer questions. And one reporter came up to me afterward and said, you're my, let's just say he was very happy with the question I asked, and he wasn't understanding why. And that leads me to wonder why he didn't ask that question. But, when it's questions like softball questions, like I can't even think of a softball question at this moment, but the reporters are almost there to further their career, where they
Yes.
ask the questions that they know they're going to be picked on at the next press conference. They're so softball. But in their defense, they don't live here and see what we see. But also to that point, when in the question that I asked, I invited any of them to come take a look at the creek with me, and nobody was really interested.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what has happened to investigative reporters anymore. So when you had to step away, you had to step away from it all, and I want to do that. And today was my step away day. Um, so where are you from? Where do you live right now? How far are you from the crash?
I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I grew up in Chippewa Township. So I live
And I grew up in
in,
South Beaver
yeah.
in Pennsylvania too. Yeah.
Okay. So not
So you went to
far.
Blackhawk.
Okay.
You went to
Yeah.
Blackhawk? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yep. So now I live 2.8 miles away. I'm in East Palestine. So
Okay.
I'm in the safe zone.
Yeah,
2.8
very
miles
safe.
away. Yes.
We're going to
Mhm.
find out how safe it was for you in a moment.
Yeah.
Um, so what? Tell me, just go ahead and talk about how it's affected you. We already know that it's taken a lot of your time. We didn't ask for this, and here we are. You should be home right after work. I should be getting a lot of work done around the house and it's about time to make supper and sit down and enjoy the rest of the night. But, we're doing this. How has this, take me back to the derailment and how this has affected you, and your husband is sitting here.
Yeah, it has really, it's thrown us for a loop. And I find myself thinking like, okay, well, I will do this today. I'll research this today. I'll follow up on this today. I'll do this meeting today. I'll do this interview today. And then maybe I'll have a different perspective in a day or so. But it only gets worse. We still know as much today as we did the day after the derailment.
What do you mean by that? Can you expound on that a little bit? Is somebody, you're not given information, or can you talk about that?
Oh boy. I mean, I have definitely pushed for information. I just mean that we know there's bad chemicals. We know bad things happened. And that really sums it up. Everything has been kind of a little bit doublespeak when it comes to the EPA. I feel like the EPA and Norfolk are in bed together like spooning, and we're trying to pry in between them and get the answers that they just don't want to give. I've spent several hours at the EPA office. I know some of those folks on a first name basis, and I come home with more questions. I call when they have a Q&A, I call it a Q&Q because it's a question and a question.
Funny you say that. That's great. Today, when the guy from KDKA, the reporter, when he came up to me after the press conference was over, the same guy that said he was happy that I asked that question. He said, we discussed why would Governor DeWine be angry with me? Shouldn't that anger be directed toward Norfolk Southern or possibly the EPA? So my personal experience is when I went down to the EPA office and I actually recorded it. I respect that, people's privacy, so I'm not going to release that. Even though I believe Ohio is a one consent state, I could release that recording. But I got to the point after 3 of them ganged up on me. I said, they're in front of me lined up, and I talk to them like I talk to you. I'm not aggressive. I'm asking normal, questions, but these aren't questions about what shampoo should I use on my dog. These are questions about the aerators in the creek and how they're putting chemicals in the air and why they're not covered by cyclone fences. And so they gang up on me, and it is a word salad. And they're just, everything I say, like you, they answer with some kind of foreign language. And then I got to the point where I said, so can we stop here? Let's pretend we're friends sitting around here discussing this as friends.
That is exactly.
Is that what you said?
We're cutting grass. You're taking a break. I'm on the. We're talking. I want you to talk to me like you've got to stay here and live here. You don't get to go home to Michigan. You don't get to go home to Chicago, to Georgia, because I had 6 of them, and I asked each one of them where they were from, and then I addressed them individually. I mean, they couldn't tell me how many vinyl chloride cars were let off on the release.
Oh my God.
6 people. And these are the people we are letting determine what chemicals they're looking for. which I sent to you, the Circular report. I believe I sent that to you a while back, where there's the 3 different appendixes, which shows what's in the railroad cars.
Okay. Okay.
The aerial view, then there's like
Oh,
an
yes.
Excel
Yes.
spreadsheet,
Yes.
and then there what appears to be the manifest
I
from
suck so bad at Excel.
Norfolk Southern. And then in the beginning of the document, there's just a breakdown of how many, how much of each one of these chemicals is. It's just kind of like a little baby kitty table for you.
Okay.
Then when you get into the meat of it, there's these 3 documents. I went in individually with the aerial photo of the railroad cars derailed. They were labeled because I was putting together all the data sheets, the safety data sheets, so I could put them in order of train car, and then I wrote the number of the train car on top, and I'm putting a binder together. Okay, this was in this car, this was in this car, this was in this car. This is what I do to bring myself peace. You were talking about like, what has it done to you? I don't know. I'm turning into somebody who cares about math and science, which that was never who I was. So now it matters. So these forms do not match. Car 51 on that overhead view might have something different than car 51 in the manifest and car 51 on the Excel spreadsheet.
On the overhead view, now are these all, even that photograph that was prepared by the EPA?
Well, I went in with just the aerial view initially, and they say, where did you get that? I said, well, it's all over Facebook. It's on, the television sites, and, here it is here. And they've cited that it is an EPA document. No, that's not ours. That's not ours. Then I pull out the spreadsheet. That's not ours. They were all theirs. Every one of them was an EPA document. Every one, and they denied that they were their own documents.
So I should ask again, because I'm a little confused, not knowing the particulars of this. How do you know they were an EPA document?
Because it's in the Circular report that is in the EPA website. It was put together and comprised by the EPA. The EPA put the whole thing together. So when you call them out, even on their own, that's like air quality. We talk about air quality. Well, then blow their mind and say, I'd like the particulate count. They won't release that. Those are 2 different animals. There was a particulate count, but they won't release it because I talked to the toxicologist many times. They will not release that. So we're breathing this stuff in. Where are you getting the air quality results? How many thousands of feet up? What airline is telling you the air quality? Because here at our level, there's all these little specificities that if you don't know them, we're not going to get the right answers. And they know that. They know that.
So you talk about that, about them not giving you the proper answers. And then when talking with them, let's say you were there, I was there for a little over 20 minutes, about a half an hour, but you've been there over and over and over again.
I've been there altogether probably over 6 hours.
So you're not the only one that has said, hey, let's talk as friends, because you feel this animosity. But secondly, I guess you're not the only one that in the short time that I went, and I don't really even care to go back, in the very beginning, they told me one thing, and 20 minutes later, they contradict themselves. Yeah. I said, we're told they're talking about vinyl chloride burning off very quickly and dissipating in the air once you shoot it in the air. And I said, well, does butyl acrylate dissipate quickly? And they said, no, it doesn't, but that's an SVOC, a semi-volatile VOC.
Yep.
And it is not thrown back into the air. It clings to the dirt and it won't rise into the air and raise up. And then 15 minutes later, they're talking about with every shovelful, the chemical that they smell up at the crash site, the local residents, is butyl acrylate. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I thought you told me 20 minutes ago that it was impossible to shoot it into the air, but yet with the front end loaders, as they dig the dirt, the butyl acrylate comes into the air and everybody smells that burnt, sweet smell. Yeah. And they couldn't answer the difference between the two. I said, you just contradicted yourself. So you end up leaving with frustration.
Well, and I did tell them too. The one guy, when I asked about how many vinyl chloride cars were let off in the controlled burn, he looks at me and goes, I don't know how many. I mean, are we doing a knock-knock joke? I'm like, that's not what we're doing right here. We're not doing this. He's like, well, I'll go find out. He got up.
He didn't know. Away. It wasn't sarcastic.
He never came back.
Yeah.
And then six people, until then I had to have an appointment for the next day.
Do you mean six people came out with you?
Yeah, they said they do not get specialized questions like that. They're not equipped to answer specialized questions. But the big poster out front says, answered all your questions. Well, I mean, I guess I just didn't want to know if it was safe to have an Easter egg hunt. I was a little more detailed. But it's disturbing because they're the Environmental Protection Agency. These are the chemicals. And I told them, I don't want to be mad at any one person. I'm not mad at anybody. But people need to step back and look at it. I said, this is just a sheet with chemicals on it to you. It's a spreadsheet. Some of it's highlighted green or orange or yellow. You don't know why. You tell me to look at the index. There is no index to tell me why they're highlighted that. But you can't, but these are all the reasons that my life changed right here on this sheet of paper. It's just a sheet of paper to you. They get recycled out, the employees there. They're only there for a few weeks. Yeah. Then by the time they get the hang of it, they bring somebody else in who's clueless. These people don't know. They're just getting a paycheck and they're going home. And that's so we can't get the answers. We don't know where to direct them. They don't know how to handle them. And we're left floundering, and they just hope the questions go away. They hope the symptoms go away.
That's how I felt when I was there.
It's just so frustrating because this, like the CDC workers who were going from door to door to gather information, 7 of them got sick.
So angry about that.
They get to go home or go to their hotel maybe 30 miles away and feel better, and we get to stay here and feel worse.
And that's the reason they didn't report it, because the CDC said as they left the area they felt better. Well, what better reason to report it? Because you're sick when you're here, you feel better when you leave.
Right.
I'm astounded. I don't even really have the words for that.
I encourage people to call the CDC, call the ATSDR, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Call these offices. It's toxic substances. See what happens. CDC that shut down this country for how long, made us wear masks, keep away from funerals, keep away from weddings and births. They say we cannot give out or advise for any medical questions.
Is that you're saying when you call them?
You can't advise? Well, it's funny because you told us all to stay home. And yeah. So if you call and you really push these numbers, because government officials, you would think you go up the chain, right? You would think you go, if you're in town, you go to your mayor, and then they go to the state representative, and so on and so forth, and so on and so forth. That's the family system of government, the hierarchy, so be it. And we elect these people because we want them to represent us. We want them to take care of us. That's the job in its entirety. Who do these bills affect that you pass? The laws, they affect us. So you're trying to take care of the population and get us to do a certain thing. Well, now the tables have turned. Now we need you to come here. What else is going on in Ohio, Mr. DeWine? What else where's the other environmental crisis and the health crisis? Where is it? You're going to have a health crisis here in 10 years. I mean, Norfolk Southern better get out their pocketbook and, write us a big fat check for a cancer research center, or just a treatment center would be nice. But it's going to be a research center. Like everything else, you don't get answers. Just give us your money.
Well, research center is correct, because there are probably going to be a lot of guinea pigs here.
We are. Yep.
It's funny you mentioned that. Governor DeWine was here for a ribbon cutting ceremony for the new health clinic. And I think he got a little tiffed with me. And the first part of my question was, this is in a positive direction, but it's also frightening that we need this. Is this a foreshadowing that we need this health clinic where we have to keep going and taking tests and see if, how we're doing? It's a shame that we even need that. So how has this affected, do you have children?
One.
And so
my daughter's
is your
19.
Daughter at home? And
she is at home. Yeah.
So how have you're 2.8 miles out. Have you had anybody in your family suffer any type of symptoms at all?
Oh, every one of us, everyone, my husband, my daughter, my animals.
Go ahead and speak about that.
They've all been a little bit different, but with some similarities, like the headache across the board. Everybody had the glaring headache in the beginning. I have had a lot of trouble with my eyes. They just feel tired. My vision is blurry. Mm-hmm. My throat hurt terribly. It felt like I had drank hot liquids.
Mm-hmm. Same here.
And my voice would go in and out. I had a hard time breathing, especially in the evening when I would go out to the barn. It was like the air was just so heavy. I couldn't catch a breath. I felt like I had almost like internal tremors, like I was, um, and I'm sure my ears hurt, and I'm sure I'm forgetting some. My husband had a lot of GI symptoms, so he had a lot of things similar to what I had. And
You're off
that,
camera. Do you mind saying what your GI symptoms were? That'll pick it up.
The headaches, the dry mouth, didn't get much of a sore throat.
your mouth and tongue, you have that tingling
The
sensation.
tingling, abdominal pain. Felt like I was passing kidney stones, but I wasn't. It was crazy. I had 2 evenings of that. Dizziness, like you feel like when an elevator's ready to stop, almost like an inebriated feeling. Real weird. And to this day, still the tip of my tongue, I still taste that sweet iron, goofy smell, taste, and the tip of my tongue is still numb. It's like there's like hot pepper seeds on the half-inch of my tongue. It's strange, and now I'm just super hyper sensitive. Like an air freshener in her car, I can't stand it. Never bothered me before. We got groceries at Walmart, and I was bagging the groceries, and you open the bag, and the scent from the plastic bag is throwing me like it's weird.
Well,
It's
that's the
very
power of
strange.
suggestion.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're fear mongering now.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we're talking about it. Yeah,
And another symptom I had was brain fog,
Brain fog.
just really
Very
bizarre.
common.
And then our daughter had a lot of the symptoms that we have combined. And then our cats and our dog they were all vomiting and had diarrhea. My horse's face swelled up. He had nose drainage, eye drainage, and very lethargic. I had a lot of lethargy as well. I had a hard time. I was exhausted. So and it's not just a coincidence. And I don't think that you can, use the power of suggestion to make somebody's throat sore or.
Yeah, and I've said too, we've all been through extremely stressful periods in our lives.
Mhm.
And when that happens, there isn't a mass in your entire family that these symptoms happen to. And when you've been through stressful times in your life, it's not as if you had a burning sore throat within, 10, the day that you're so stressed out. I personally shared your GI symptoms. Um, there's a news station called Newsmax, and shortly after the burn, shortly after, just a few days after the burn, and Greg Kelly asked me, well, and how are you feeling, Rick? And I said, I feel exactly the same as I felt before the accident. And then I went down the bottom of By Road here and started filming in the creek twice a week.
That's all it takes.
Wow. I've never had heartburn in my life. This wasn't heartburn. Not only did I have your throat, it felt like somebody painted a line down my throat. Like one certain line was like sandpaper, like strep throat times 3.
Mhm.
But I actually had acid reflux for 4 days that was so bad, it was almost like a spray bottle shooting into my mouth. I've never had acids in my mouth before, and they shot up into my tongue and my teeth, my teeth and the whole inner part of the mouth. Had to go get some medication I was on for a little bit, and now it's much better. I've stayed out of the creeks until Easter weekend. So other than so you have animals. Do you have any farm animals?
Horses.
And they were nothing visible that you could see with the horses.
Well, yeah, that he had the swollen face. I couldn't even get his halter on. His face was
really?
so swollen.
Have you ever seen that before, where you
No.
could not get your horse's halter on?
Never. Nasal discharge, eye discharge. I found him in the morning when I went to feed. He was all sweated up on his neck and chest, but it was dried sweat, and there was diarrhea in his stall, and he had rolled in it. So immediately I'm thinking, okay, well, he's colicking. And then that was when I noticed all the other things going on. And I wanted to walk him. He didn't really want to walk. I got him moving. And I called the vet, and they said it was an allergic reaction to something environmental. So for the naysayers out there, oh, it could be pollen, it could be this, or it absolutely, sure, it could be. But in all the years I've had him, he's never exhibited this before. Could it be something new? Absolutely. But here's myself, my husband, my daughter, my 2 cats, my dog, and now my horse.
Yeah.
So how do you?
No pun intended, but there has been a massive rash of allergic reactions to normal or normal environment this season. I think you might agree with that. And also, you were talking about the power of suggestion. That is you using on, amongst ourselves. I think our community, and I think you were talking about this when you said, hey, I thought maybe this could be something with my horse. Through the power of suggestion, the CDC and the EPA has made us doubt ourselves. When we see these things,
Sure.
the first thing we say, well, maybe we're crazy. I don't want to make something too big about this.
Right.
But, what do you have anything to say about that?
I 100% do. I feel like, does it make you a little bit more conscious of certain things? Does it make you more leery? Do you think like, oh man, maybe my throat, maybe it's just more than just something that I usually have, or maybe my allergies are worse this year? Absolutely. But I think for what we are experiencing, and when you talk to someone else who has shared those symptoms, this wasn't a sore throat like you've had before. These aren't symptoms like you've experienced before. It's just different in some way. And I think for the folks who don't have those symptoms or didn't experience that, it's hard for them to understand.
It is hard.
And
because there's a portion of the town that thinks we're the crazy ones.
There is an absolute divide. And for that, I have said, and I will continue to say, they think everything is okay. They think we're overreacting. We're exaggerating. Let it go. Be it that they're afraid that their property value is going to decline, that they just haven't experienced it. They can't smell it and they don't have these feelings. I hope they're right. I hope I'm wrong. I hope everything is great 5 or 10 years from now. I really do. I'm glad they can go home and relax, because like you were saying, Rick, we go home and it's just like you're wired into this stuff now. It's like it's taken a part of you and it owns it. It's like I don't want to think about this stuff. I don't want it to be part of my life, but it is. And is it going to take a bigger percentage of it as time goes on, or is it going to take a smaller percentage? I don't know. But I'm not going to stand on my soapbox and tell anybody they need to be mad if they're not mad, or they need to feel unsafe if they feel safe. I would never, and I don't think any of us are trying to do that. But they don't get to stand on their soapbox and tell me I'm crazy either.
Yes. And I think you probably feel this strong, and you have to spend time thinking about it at night, because you and everyone in your family did experience those symptoms. And I had said before, maybe, just maybe and maybe not, and I hope it never has to come to this, where they actually may thank someone like you that was the canary in the coal mine, somebody a little more sensitive than them, that had just experienced these things and spoke out about it. Whereas other people may not be that acutely sensitive to the chemicals that rapidly. It is not just the acute exposure, but it's the long-term exposure that maybe these people aren't so sensitive to, that they're living within their homes or on their land. And I hope it doesn't come to the point where one day they thank you for speaking out, but that may just happen someday.
Yeah. And we don't know the long-term effects. Maybe those people who don't have the symptoms, maybe we will end up next to each other getting our chemo in the chair and talking about it.
Let's hope not.
We just don't know. Or maybe we'll all be fine and be like, man, I'm really glad I was wrong about that, and it did end up being nothing. Who knows?
There is one thing I know that I'm not wrong about, is the visible contamination of the creek beds.
Oh.
So I get so angry. I describe it as the mafia. You try to leave the mafia and you stay away for a while, then you see the CDC or the EPA or the governor announce how beautiful and unicorns and rainbows it is and how awesome it is. Then I get pissed and it drags me back in. The creek drags me back in. Friday, Good Friday, after work, I stopped, unfortunately without a respirator. Saturday, I stopped after work. And then Sunday night, I said, I'm 3 minutes from the creek. Let me go down and mess around. Absolutely horrible. I'll show you the videos when
Bad
we're
idea.
done.
Yeah.
Absolutely
It's still there because
horrible.
it's clinging to the sediment, which the butyl acrylate was floating on top. So what's clinging to the sediment is something, what my understanding is, petroleum based. So what is that?
And what chemicals were formed, what myriad of chemicals
Exactly.
were formed when they burned it. And when those chemicals, as my friend Dave Young would say, when they even spilled off the train and they touched together before they were even burned, what reactions did they have with each other, and what did they form?
Yeah, it's like it's a whole new. If anybody did square dancing back in the day, and you have to pick a different partner and you swing them
I was
around,
so shy as a kid. I hated that in gym class. Oh my God.
he got in trouble because he
You
wouldn't
got
do
paddled?
He
I
wouldn't
got
do it.
paddled every week, so we'd probably get along.
But this is what it's created. It's created those new partnerships of chemicals.
Yeah.
It's a chemical cocktail. We're in a petri dish and we're lab rats. I mean, I'm a marked one because I got my vinyl chloride test to prove it. So, put your little tattoo on my ear and then let's follow Linda for the next 10 years and see what happens.
Unfortunately, reason I just keep checking the time. Unfortunately, here's the very, again, frightening, horrifying thing. Because doctors were not testing for vinyl chloride. There are very few people tested. And yet with those very few people tested, there are many of them testing positive for vinyl chloride. What if we tested a whole lot of people? What would happen then?
There'd be a whole lot of people with vinyl chloride. Well, yeah, and I think there's a lot of people
let's keep
still
that.
fighting.
Let me say something first. The reason you may have tested positive and your husband so far has tested negative. Let me tell you why.
Power of suggestion.
No, this is extremely important. So early on, I was one of the doctors sending people out for vinyl chloride testing, okay, and benzene. And I was so happy calling them back, hey, you're negative. It's great news. So I heard when I gave some people some prescriptions lately, an entity in Pennsylvania was turning people away, okay? And I thought it was the lab, but it wasn't. It ended up being the entity, the healthcare facility. They wouldn't honor my prescriptions, which I think is probably not lawful. I'm not sure. In my 30 years, I've never had a lab. So this entity does their own lab work, but certain tests they send out, a big hospital. And so they have their own lab there, but they weren't accepting my prescriptions for those tests. And so me mistakenly think that it was actually Quest that was denying my prescriptions. I called them last week and I said, can you have somebody please call me back and tell me, I want to make sure that my patients don't go there, waste a trip, and they're turned away, and I have the right coding. And so a guy called me back. He ended up being one of the top doctors that works for Quest. And we talked at length. And I said to him, oh, thanks. I have the right information. You've confirmed that. So I'll just keep sending them. And I said, the tough thing here is since the CDC has told us that it's a crapshoot anyway, because unless you get it right at that initial exposure and you have that little 24 to 48 hour window, I'll send them, but even if they're exposed, probably can't get it now.
Pointless.
Yeah, listen, you probably know this. He said to me, well, yeah, that's true. He said, that's true for the blood. He said, for the urine, it's totally different. He said, urine is chronic exposure. He said, the urine test shows if you're living in it in your house or with your ductwork or in your yard, and slowly you build vinyl chloride up in your body, and then you start peeing it out. So you could very well test positive 3 months from now. That is why the government and the CDC should be testing every 3 to 4 months everybody that lives here. And we talked about that. And I said, this is probably not your wheelhouse, but there's not a lot of people aren't super wealthy in Palestine. If they're not insured, how much is this going to cost them? This is what he said to me. He said, well, what are you talking about? I've seen that. I saw that disaster on the news. Are you telling me you aren't all getting tested by the CDC on a regular basis? Right. The man was in shock. He was in shock. And I think most people around the world listening to this would be shocked.
Yeah. So it's disheartening. And It's not fair. It's not right. And like I said earlier, are they just hoping this is going to go away?
That's what I believe.
And then our levels will be gone, and then we'll all test. And
I don't think they're going to be gone.
I don't think so either.
So this leads me to, you were talking about how difficult it was, how you had to fight to get your, let's talk about that. You had to fight to get your vinyl chloride test done.
Well, I went to our little kitty clinic here in town when it first opened.
Which I call the petting zoo?
Yeah.
The first day.
It's the data collection center.
No, I don't know about this one, but with all due respect, because there are, you care about the volunteers, but in Darlington they set up, the one that was there for 2 weeks, and they had a dog you could pet as well. So I called it the petting zoo because after a chemical bomb goes off in your town, you need to go pet a dog, right, and placate yourself. So, but go ahead.
We didn't get a dog. That would have been better. I didn't even get a dog.
Yeah, at least we could have.
Man, even a guinea pig would have been something. That's us though. Sorry. So no, I went in. She took the information, sat across the desk. She entered it in the laptop. I said, "Well, I get a printout of these, everything you entered today." Well, our printer's not working. We don't have a printer. You'll get that mailed to you. I said, "Well, who will mail it to me?" Well, I don't know. I guess the Columbiana County Department of Health. Okay, is there a phone number I can call if I don't get it? Because I feel a little skeptical about everything right now. Well, you would just call the Columbiana County Department of Health. Okay. And so they said, would you like...
And I apologize. This was for what again? What did you want to print out of?
Just the visit.
Oh, just the visit.
What
just
happened,
the visit.
What transpired,
okay.
What I told you, what did you document? Like you're documenting something because you're clicking away on your laptop. So what is this? And so she said, do you need a reference? And I'm like, because there was no doctor there the day I was there. There was no doctor present. I don't think anybody even took vitals. Nothing. It was just another Q&Q. So she said, well, we do have a mental health bus if you would like to be seen. If you have any reason for some unknown anxiety. I'm like, well, it's pretty known. Like, I know why I have it. It's just obvious. Go down the road a couple blocks. So, but anything medical. Well, do you have a PCP? Yes, I do. Okay, then. Well, I don't know if you would need a reference or not. I said, well, if you're giving references out for something, like whatever you got, like fire it over. I don't know if they were doing blood work. I didn't know what they were doing. She seemed to not know what they were doing because it was new. So I ended up going to my PCP, who happens to be at the same office that they were referring people who did not have a PCP to go to. So I'm like, okay, this is good. So my doctor should know the drill. He did not. He diagnosed me with a sinus infection. He did not even note on the visit. And the visit when I got in to see him, it was February 24th. It was just sinus infection. They said I had a cough. I did not have a cough. I did not have a cough. They almost wanted to treat it like it was COVID, mask up, the whole thing.
Yes.
Because the CDC doesn't offer any health information now. We talked about that too, but you're telling me to wear a mask. So anyway, I left there.
On that note, I used to call people crazy that would wear their masks in their car by themselves. And I found myself as I drive through the park I left my respirator.
See?
Yeah. So I'm so sorry, but go ahead.
No,
so I'm
okay.
there in my car with my respirator on, like the crazies. Sorry, but during, like you're going to catch COVID off somebody off the radio or something.
Right. Yeah.
But possibly I can see if maybe somebody touched the inside of your car.
Yeah. Then
yes.
COVID,
yes.
COVID,
yes.
COVID went to bed at 10.
So go ahead.
Just
I'm
like
sorry.
the chemicals went away for the Easter egg hunt, just like that. So yeah. So then I left there. Again, I wanted to print out from my doctor's office for my visit because usually you get that, a patient summary. I didn't get it. I called them. I would like my patient summary. Can you tell me what it says? Well, it says sinus infection. I said, well, no, it should say exposure to chemicals.
Wow.
We don't have enough room to type that.
Wow.
I didn't know there was like an alphanumeric limit to the amount of characters.
So somehow electronically, then they sent these to your PCP. Is that what you're saying?
No. This was my PCP that did this.
Oh.
So he also told me that he had 7 to 8 other residents from East Palestine go to visit him, and he diagnosed everyone with sinus
Did you
infections.
mention that You believe you were exposed to chemicals?
Oh,
And that
100%.
wasn't written
I
on
had
at least your consultation that the patient
no,
believes?
no.
That was another
And that
thing.
was why I was all fired up.
Yikes.
So I went, and I also had on my phone, my neighbor had gotten tested. So I showed him, I said, hey, this is my neighbor directly across the street. She's received these tests, including blah, blah, blah. Can you write me these labs? No, you have to go to the emergency room. Well, I've heard the emergency rooms aren't doing these tests and that it has to be ordered by a physician. No, I'm not ordering these.
You gotta sign something.
So one of my patients is the wife of a medical doctor. She came in one visit and she was telling me, we were talking about the East Palestine, and she was telling me that she was so angry because her husband, who works for a facility, was on a Zoom meeting. And when she walked into that particular room of the house that he was on the Zoom meeting with, she would listen for a bit. She said she was so furious she had to get out of the room because they were coaching them how to talk to people from East Palestine.
Yeah.
And not take them serious,
Yes.
or not order tests. And I can't say specifics, but it was enough where this doctor's wife was absolutely furious.
Yeah. And it was kind of like that. But I will say, I found out through contacting, because I called Columbiana County Department of Health right after that. And I'm like, what is going on? Do you know you're sending people here? And this is what's happening. So I talked to a girl there. She is amazing. And she really, really tries really hard to do the right thing. And I have to say, she has been very pleasant to deal with and very helpful. So
Can I say something about that too? And we'll remember where you are.
Mm-hmm.
As I go filming down near the crash site, and I'm joking around with Norfolk Southern, where the people doing the cleanup, those are really nice people.
They are. Sure they are.
And honestly, they don't even probably know what they're getting into because they're walking around without respirators or doing anything, and they're not protected. So this is not hate upon the people that are at a lower level, and the nurses and everybody and all the people helping out. It's a lot of good meaning people in this. Misguided maybe and uninformed, but go ahead.
But this she will get the she's kind of a bulldog. She's the only one who will call me back with answers. And I will look into it, blah blah blah, and then I get a phone call. I can't remember how many days later, maybe a little over a week or more than that, from the doctor's office. We're doing those tests now. Would you like an appointment? Yep. So I went in, and that's how I ended up getting my test. But I pushed because I said, listen, there's a vinyl chloride test, urinalysis. Listen, here's what we need, these CBC counts. This needs to be done. This is, what about the liver function test? What about these things? This is what we need.
It's very hard on the liver.
And it is extremely hard on the liver, yeah. So that, it's a learning curve, and I get it. But we're 2 months now. These doctors need to sharpen their pencils, and you got to do your homework because we're going to have an epidemic. Right now, we've got a crisis. This is gonna be something. What it's gonna be, I don't know. Nobody knows, but it's gonna be something.
So on that point, we talked earlier. One of the reasons you were a little hesitant about doing this is said, you know just what you skimmed the surface on studying positive vinyl chloride tests in the body. And you shouldn't feel that way. That is not what you're supposed to be doing. You sell, I don't know what, you work for an insurance company.
Yep.
Your expertise is not vinyl chloride and toxicology. That's what infuriates me so much.
Come to me
There should be, like I call it, ants on an anthill. People out here helping us, toxicologists. It should, like, do you guys remember the movie E.T.? Remember how they descended on that town? That should be what's happening here, and it's not. And I don't know. You're PCP. I've got a friend that's a medical doctor, 30 years. We were college roommates. He doesn't know this stuff because this is not what we encounter. We don't encounter chemical bombs in our town in a regular practice setting. So the fact that you were a little hesitant because you don't know all the ins and outs of vinyl chloride poisoning. You're not supposed to know. They're supposed to be telling us. So go ahead. Sorry.
No, and
just makes me so mad.
No, and I'm glad that you said that because when I did get my test results, they were just simply.
So it came back positive for vinyl chloride. in your body.
I was going for a meeting that was being held about the whole derailment. I get a phone call from a gal at the doctor's office, and she was just the receptionist. Hey, your test is back for the vinyl chloride. Okay, now I'm thinking exactly what you said. 24 to 48 hours out of your system. And remember, the Fisher-Price air meters never detected any of it in the air. I'm 2.8 miles away.
The other person that tested positive, she said she was initially thinking, well, where was I? Like how,
Yes.
where was I?
Yes.
But it's not, that's not how it works with the urine.
But I did that. I'm like, okay, well, I was this far away, and then I was this far away, and I was this far. How could this be? Because I wasn't. But yet at our house, we'll go outside, and you'll smell pockets of it. It's bizarre. Like you'll smell it here, and then you'll walk 10 feet away, and then you'll come back, and it's there. But maybe 15 minutes later, it's not there anymore. So she's like, hey, your results are in for your vinyl chloride. I'm like, yeah, okay. And she's like, just want to let you know that it is in your system. And I'm like, okay, well, what? And then of course then you say, well, like, what's the numbers? Not that it matters, because I don't know what the hell they mean anyway.
It doesn't matter. You're positive for vinyl chloride.
And I found out from my handy little paperwork that, no amount is a good amount. So I can't tell you anything. If you'd like, you can come pick up your test results. I said, well, sure. So I went in. The nurse was very nice. She handed them to me, and I got an I'm sorry. And I said, well, what does this mean? We don't know. Well, what's like a bad number? We don't know. Anything's really a bad number. And my daughter was seen by a different PCP, and she said that none of hers have come back with any in. So
she got her results back, and they're not. She's negative for vinyl chloride.
No, my daughter didn't get hers back yet, but we were talking about mine, and then she said that none of her patients have come back with it in their system.
Okay.
So
none of. So you were talking about your daughter's blood work, and the urine analysis, which hasn't come back yet.
Hasn't come back.
And then this person, the nurse or whoever it was, right, said, so far everybody they've tested has come back negative.
Well, no, I jumped.
Is that what
my nurse pretty much just told me, sorry, we don't know anything. Sorry. And then when I took my daughter for her testing, her doctor had said, I haven't had anyone come back with it.
Okay.
So then I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm a winner at something here.
Yeah. And your results were a little higher than the other person I recently interviewed. So you said at least you're good at something, right?
I'm good at something.
Yeah.
That's right. And I'm hoping that, people are like, oh, are you afraid of dying? I have had 4 people ask me that. We're all dying anyway. I mean, I don't know what this means to me. Maybe it's the fountain of youth. Maybe I'll get superhuman strength. Maybe I'll grow an eye in the back of my head, but then I'll have to cut my hair around it. So that would be unsightly, but yet useful. That's not reality. Like, we know what the reality of this is, and it's bad.
It's bad.
But how long and when? If somebody's like, you know what, you're going to kick it in 2 to 3 years. Well, just tell me that, because life changes for me tomorrow. Today.
Probably not going to happen. But what I'm concerned about is, honestly, your entire family and you, because where are you being chronically exposed to vinyl chloride all of a sudden in our little town? And it's not just the amount of exposure, it's the duration. When you take exposure times duration, then you're really putting yourself at risk over time. I'd like to believe you're going to live to 110, and I hope that's the case. But a healthy 110.
Yeah, there we go.
The Bible says we're supposed to live to 150. So, but then what do you do? And who has the money once insurance pays for that once a year? Who has the money for your husband to keep testing to make sure he's negative, or your daughter? It's $650 each test if you're not insured. So the question becomes, where do you stay? And secondly, what you do with your family and your life, which is everybody's up in the air. And then secondly, go ahead and answer that. Like, how does this make you? The second question I wanted to ask you, there's probably a little vindication, but hey, this is something real. It is not allergies.
Yes.
But then there's a whole range of emotions with that as
There's
well.
vindication,
how do
and
you
there's going to be ramifications.
how do you feel?
So,
Like, how do you feel since that has tested positive?
well, I'll be honest with you. You were talking about the creeks. At this point, I'm really concerned about that. I'm concerned about when does it affect our water. That was another EPA. Can you tell me the direction the groundwater flows from the derailment site? Call a local well drilling company is the answer I got. Are you kidding me right
Yeah,
now?
they refused to test our well. I don't know about you, but
We did get ours tested
from the EPA.
from Norfolk's contractors, and then
Yeah.
also from the county.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. But I'm more worried about that. So what they have instructed me to do is find a hydrogeologist and work the problem not from the derailment site to my
Yeah.
house, but from my house to the derailment. Because if that happens, if my water goes bad, not only is that a huge setback for daily living and financial resale, but it's detrimental. So you've got that on top of whatever this is that I already have inside of me, doing whatever it does to me on a cellular level. I I don't know.
When you talk about you being advised to contact a hydrogeologist,
Mm-hmm.
I think of the
You'd
phrase.
think the EPA would have one.
Well,
But
yeah, but here's how I feel about the wells. You know the phrase, the best laid plans of mice and men? The older we get, we see what happens when science is false and when things go wrong. We were told a lot of things during COVID. We're told that water flows one way. We're told, I know enough to believe that they don't know enough about this, that once this hits our aquifer, and it spreads out, like when you put some, you put some like Dawn dishwashing liquid in your sink, and it just goes whoosh. I don't care what they say. I believe we're going to be in big trouble one day, and I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you are too. But I feel like why we keep clawing at information and subjecting ourselves to this and letting it eat away at our time, what we do in our homes and what we do with our families, and how long it takes us to cook supper before or even if we cook it at all, because we get wrapped up in this. Common sense tells you we know the answer. It's bad, and it's real bad. It's worse than what we even think. That's why they're not telling us.
Mm-hmm.
It is bad. We are right. What do we do next? And how do we get to doing that next step? Does anybody really want to say, I want to leave here? No. Did you want to wake up? I mean, we were in the middle of building a barn. I've waited for 25 years to have my own barn. We've made do with buildings we had. We've put stalls in them. I have waited for this. When I was 6 years old, I made a shoebox and I turned it into a little red barn.
That's so cool. You're making me tear up. That is so cool.
And now I have the barn.
This is your heaven.
And it's sitting there. Like he was out working on the electric the other day, and I'm like, why are you even doing that? Like, I don't even. It has taken what was important to me and made it meaningless. What are my horses eating? Are they even going to be around here to enjoy this? What's going to happen to them? Like, how do you let something you love be exposed to this stuff? I mean, I can't go to a hotel. We're out of the 1 mile, and hotels don't welcome horses and dogs and cats. So that's part of your family.
You said it best, we're not gypsies. We don't travel light. It's hard for us to just pick up.
Absolutely.
And home means something. That's why people go home for holidays. That's why.
Well, when they evacuated the first round, you remember everybody left. When they started digging at the crash site, people couldn't bring themselves to leave again. A lot of people did, as they're putting more chemicals in the air, but emotionally, people could not disrupt their lives again. They would actually risk their lives than say, I just can't do it again. It was too stressful.
And
it's mental well-being and physical well-being and emotional and psychological, and they're all intertwined into well-being. So how do you divide it up and sort it out? It's hard.
Linda touched on, I think, that you're almost penalizing the kids, that people, if they did decide to relocate, and they're just hammering them with homework. They've got, some said 8 hours worth of homework, and it's almost like they're punishing for
Oh, wow.
bringing them.
Yeah, I didn't, those are the things, because we don't have children, that I don't even see. right before you talk about it, I just want to say, hey, I know the people that watch these interviews don't think this way, but some people in the country, or they categorize us as country bumpkins. Does this person sound like a country bumpkin to you? She is so intelligent. We're not these, and even if we were, I don't care what kind of people we are. Everybody that's human has worth. So I don't care if we're the most redneck people in the world. That you don't put a chemical bomb off in our town and forget about us. But this woman is intelligent. So go ahead and talk about your kids. How does it affected the kids? And
well, thank you. And I would like to say that too. This is an equal opportunity disaster. I don't care your income or your education. I don't care your background. I don't care your religion, your sexual orientation. It's equal opportunity.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I got an email the other day, I believe it was, or maybe it was on our Off the Rails site. Somebody contacted me, and they were from out of town, reporters, and they said, hey, can you talk to some people who want to talk? And we especially want to talk to the marginalized part of your community. And I said, we are all marginalized here. We just had a chemical bomb dropped on us. So I don't know what she meant by marginalized, because I didn't go into it.
That. Yeah.
But hey, go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, what?
You were talking about the children.
Okay, so we just have one, and she is 19. And I will tell you how it affected her, because 19, we can all kind of go back to that. It was a good time. She is a freshman at YSU. So she's commuting back and forth. The day of the controlled burn, and I hate using that word.
Chemical bomb.
The chemical bomb, the mushroom cloud. She's messaging, I'm at work. And she messages me, and I'm like, she says they're going to blow it up. Like, this is just kids talking. I'm like, that's ridiculous, because it's fun. It's going to be phosgene gas. They're not going to let that off. That's crazy talk. You know,
never even thought of that perspective. You hear from a kid how ridiculous this sounds. You're like, you're hearing stupid rumors. They would never do that.
I dismiss her.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm sitting there, and then my coworker, who also lives here in Palestine, she's like gathering her stuff up to leave. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Well, I'm leaving. I'm like, well, if you're leaving, I'm leaving. What's happening? They released Black Hawk schools. They evacuated Black Hawk School District. And I'm like, well, I work in Black Hawk School District. What's happening? So I get my phone, boop, boop, beep, boop, call the high school office, talk to the secretary. What's going on? We are evacuating from by order of the governor. I'm like, yep. So I tell my boss, he's like, okay, well, go do what you got to do. Hurry up, come home, tell him, throw clothes in a clothes hamper, didn't put them in, I had an empty hamper. I'm like, put your clothes, put some of her clothes. And we took off, and we loaded one horse up. The other one wouldn't get on the trailer. So took the dog, we took off. And then I got to call my daughter, do not drive home, because she comes home during the time that they're releasing the bomb, and I don't want her driving through Palestine. She's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know, stay there, do this, do that, and then finally we found a meeting spot. But it was just so surreal. I'm like, this is like a bad dream. This doesn't make, who does this? This
like
doesn't even make any sense.
On Netflix.
Yeah. So then she experienced the headaches and things like that. But of course she's 19, so not enough to keep her down. And she's got things to do and places to go. So, but she got very irritated with going through town. Why are there so many people here? There's reporters, there's camera. Like, for her, the upset was very much an upset to her normalcy,
her routine.
And and she's somebody who wants to go and live in a city. And I think she kind of changed her mind a little bit when she saw all the activity. Yeah. So for her, she actually retreats when we talk about this. I think she's not dismissing it, and I think it frightens her, but she doesn't want to talk about it. And that's hard, because we talk about it way more than I would like to.
And it may have nothing to do with it, but I can't help but wonder if through parental influence, and that's okay, how different friends are going to have different attitudes as well, like ranging from this is nothing at all to this is horrible.
Mhm.
So, you know, I don't know if that.
Well, with going to YSU, I think that a lot of them
Oh,
they're not talking about it.
yeah. Yes.
They're not
Yeah.
impacted like we are. Whereas if she was going
Yes.
to the high school still, then there would be different
Got it.
influences
Got
going there. But like she's gone, it's gone, problem's gone, and then she comes home, and you know, if we're having a discussion about it, I mean, she's mostly, you know, at 19 who's sitting down and having a powwow
Mhm.
with her parents regularly. But we are pretty tight though. But it's just something where I can tell that it has affected her. So I will try not to talk about it with her. But yet at the same time, then I feel like I'm not doing my parental diligence by talking to, like I had to, I, you know, she got the test, so she knows that there's an issue. She's not feeling well. So I just try to leave it lie there. I don't want to make her feel worse or scared.
When you brought up the test, is there anything more that you want to talk about that, or as we wrap up, what anything that and you either of you especially want said?
I just feel like, you know, my numbers came back at what they came back. We don't know what that means for the long term. Um, there's a lot of variations as far as what what is what, and I'm trying to learn about that. But I feel like we've all been exposed. We've all been exposed to multiple chemicals. We've all been exposed in, like we talked about, different ways, financially, mentally,
Mm-hmm.
physically, psychologically, emotionally. We're all exposed to something. And if you haven't been, I'm seriously happy for you and I hope it stays that way. I mean, I am not downplaying that at all. But I think that for people who do have that, we have to communicate. Are we going to be able to change anything? I don't know. I would like to hope
Change
so.
anything in what way? What do you mean change anything?
The answers that we're getting, moving forward, making progress, getting clarity, getting non-conflicting answers.
I don't know how you all feel, but unfortunately, if it didn't make a change when you couldn't even get a parking space in our little town and press were parking in people's yards, I don't know if that change is going to happen because the eyes of the world were on us at that point, and Norfolk Southern just went along and did their normal routine. The EPA and the CDC. So, and they hid stuff from us. The CDC did not report their workers were sick. So I don't want to be doom and gloom, but just by what I've seen so far, if that's the kind of change you mean from the entities that are in our town,
it is.
I am not so sure that's going to happen.
I know, and I know the answers. That's why I said we know in the back of our head, and we keep coming together, and in different situations and different forums, and we don't even know
Does that
what are we
make you
trying
want to
to
give up?
accomplish.
Does that make you kind of want to just retreat and get? Because I've been there. I want to give up sometime because it doesn't do. I don't feel it's not doing any good.
And Linda has mentioned that multiple times. I think Linda's very goal oriented. She she looks out and has a plan, and you lost that plan. You don't know how far to look out. She kind of she always knew where we needed to be.
Why did she lose the plan? What do you mean?
Because I think now, when you say you got a 5-year goal, or when we want to achieve this, or maybe we were going to move in 8 to 12 years, and now we're trying to rush everything and get things done and try to plan, and it just throws it all out of whack.
Well,
and so does that in life for some and for anybody.
Well, man makes plans and God laughs.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But at least you try to have.
He's laughing hard now.
And it's hard to have that now. It's easy to give up, but you got each other, and that's you got to look out. There's 3 of us. There's me, her, and Morgan, and that's what we've got to worry about.
Well, maybe we should end with this instead of man makes plan and God laughs. East Palestine residents make plan and Norfolk Southern laughs.
Yeah.
We don't have a checkbook like they do.
Yeah.
The amount of money they're throwing around. I just seen the other day. Was it yesterday? They just did another 300,000 to the park. You know, there were
Ooh,
numbers
new mulch.
that we don't know. You know, I mean,
What about the people that want to leave and they can't? Can they throw some of that money to them?
you would think that's where it would go. You really would. Somebody, you know, what do you need when you're a renter? You know, first month's, last month, security deposit. I mean, my dad, you know, he worked in a mill. My mom stayed home. There was 5 of us to try to move.
Five
family.
kids. 5 kids. Yeah, 7
5
of you.
kids. I don't know how you do it. You know, nobody. You live. You know, you're lucky if you got a month's worth of extra income sitting around. You know, you got a home, or you're already paying rent, or you just paid rent. This happens, and you got to leave and try to scrape up 2-3 grand. It's not that easy.
You know, it just occurred to me, and I don't know why it just occurred to me, but you talked about the park and the $300,000, right? And beautifying the park. And you remember I talked about the clinic in Darlington? And God love the people and the pastors and the people that were helping, you know, for emotional support and the volunteers. But the therapy dog, because what you need after a chemical bomb goes off in your town is to pet a dog. I don't know why this just occurred to me. Why is the most important thing that we beautify our park after this chemical bomb went off? What does that have to do with anything? Well, the people that are suffering, that
It's
want to
distraction.
leave.
It's distraction.
It's the shining
it's
lure.
them
It's
showing goodwill. It's the goodwill from Norfolk Southern.
goodwill would be giving these people money that want to get out of here.
But then where do you draw the line, right? It's business. Where do we draw the line? Well, do we do the whole zip code? Well, what
Well,
about people who own? What about people who own and still have to make payments? What about people who own outright? What about people? Then if you do the whole zip code, what do you do with people who have larger amounts of property? How would they ever differentiate it? I wasn't supposed to be somebody that got
do you
vinyl
think
chloride in my system.
Do you think to buy out the town of Palestine, those that want to live, that leave? Do you think 100 billion would do it? I do. 100 billion that we sent to Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Why can't we do that here?
Why are we not getting the assistance that we need? Why are we being shunned? We're being shunned, politically shunned. Where are the environmental activists right
You
now?
end this. Go ahead and end what you would like to say.
Oh boy, I think you should end it. You're better at wrapping these things
No,
up.
I want you to wrap it up. This is about you and your family.
Well, it's all just a waiting game. It's all and game being the key word. I don't have lobbyists. I don't have deep pockets. I don't have anybody to bring my case to the forefront and fight for me. I'm just Linda Murphy. I'm just and it's just my family of 3, and I'm insignificant. So, but I don't know. I think everybody has a fight in this that feels the way that we do. And who is going to pick up the sword and the shield for us? Who's going to be the hero? What does it look like? Do we get one? I wish I could end this on a positive note, but I can't. I can't.
Well, awesome seeing you again.
Thank you.
And like I said, if you don't want to live to 110, then make it 105. So, and that's it.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.